dealing with haters. Is there any tips and tricks, and how do I cope? Because I guarantee you, no matter what you do in life, no matter where you are in your life, there will be people that are projecting hate on you for one reason or another. And it may not even be a personal reason, but it won't stop the hate coming. So in this episode, I'm sitting down thinking about just how I deal with haters and negativity and all of the kind of ugly side of life. So sit with me while I think about this, while I kind of explore areas of my own life where I've kind of had to navigate these waters, and hopefully try to share some maybe wisdom or insight from my own life with you. So let's go get into it. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast. I'm your host, John, and on this episode, we're exploring all things haters. Now, it is my belief, I guess, that no matter who you are in life, you will always be a villain in somebody's story. No matter where you are or what you do in life, somebody will always deem you to be an enemy. Now, that has no bearing on yourself. You can be a good person, but if you get the job that somebody else wants, you're their enemy. If you get the partner that somebody else wants, you're their enemy. So there are loads of things that can make somebody else wish bad on you for one reason or another. And there may not be anything necessarily bad to be wished on. For example, if you're just competing for a job or just in a general healthy competition. A little bit of kind of hate or degradation to the opposite party is kind of good. At least in that competitive surrounding or whatever else. But then you're in a competitive state, so you can kind of understand it. I'm talking a lot more about life. Now, the thing is with hate, like probably the worst kind of hate to deal with is from the people that you're supposed to care about or love or that are close to you. But in all honesty, that's probably where you're going to get it from the most. Or at least where it's going to feel the most prominent. Because that's where it's going to matter from. If you have a stranger tell you some hateful words or whatever else, it's very easily brushed off. But it's when you have people close to you that project the hate, that gets a lot harder to deal with. And quite personally, there's a lot of people that can be close to you. They don't necessarily want the best for you. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But once you swallow it, you can then control your actions. Because this is the thing, no matter how people react to you, whether it's good or bad, you'll never be able to control that. The only thing you'll ever be able to control is your actions. Now, I've lived my life trying to be a good person for the most part. I'm not perfect by any means. But I promise you, I've tried to be a good person. But there are still people out there that consider me enemy number one. There are still people out there that think very low of me. And I guarantee you I've given them no reason to. But it doesn't stop it happening. People will play their own kind of stories in their mind. They will get their own kind of ideas together and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they need to justify things for their own life at the end of the day. So when people are projecting hate, there's a few questions you need to ask yourself. Is it genuine? I.e., does it apply to you, or is it being misdirected from somewhere else? Do you care? I.e., do you value this person's opinion? And does it matter what they think of you in the long term? And 3, is there anything you can do about it? Or is there anything you want to do about it? Because if somebody's projecting hate and saying you're X, Y, or Z, and it doesn't bother you, I'll give you an example, so I'm not so vague. So when I first started training when I was a lot younger, in my early 20s, I was incredibly selfish when it comes to training. Because I had to be. I made it my life. I was planning my meals 3, 4, 5 days in advance. Like you could have asked me, not even planning them, preparing them 3, 4 days in advance. You could have asked me what I was going to be eating in 6 months on a Tuesday for lunch, and I would have been able to tell you. Like, I was that regimented with it. The same thing with working out. I was training 7 days a week. But to become that kind of consumed in my hobby, I had to be incredibly selfish. I didn't talk to people when I ate. I was very selfish with my time and my sleep, and everything had to be for the benefit of John. And there are some benefits to that, don't get me wrong. I managed to get quite strong in those times. I managed to do a fair bit. But would I go back there now? No. No. Very easily, I prefer who I am now, how I am now. Like, but it's not to say that that person was a bad person. He had his flaws, yeah, but he become me. So now that person that put in that ridiculous amount of training and effort back then is now paying off for me now, where I can't get my words out. I don't have the time to put into the gym like I used to. I used to put in, say, an hour and a half every single day, 7 days a week training. Nowadays, I've got a little one, I'm a dad, I've got far more responsibilities and far more to do. And in all honesty, I'm just getting back into the gym, so I'm lucky if I put in 3 hour sessions a week or 3 hour and a half sessions a week. But the groundwork that I laid back in those days, because I built quality, because I built things that are slowly over time with hard work, they're kind of waiting for me now. So I don't have to work so hard now to kind of pick those pick those benefits back up in a sense. So by kind of shutting myself down so much, I kind of have built myself a kind of physical nest egg in that sense. I suppose it'd be the same way in like it didn't last as long with working, but I kind of done the same thing with working where I was working 6, 7 days a week constantly simply because I was chasing progress. I was chasing financial progress. I was chasing life progress. I wanted to become a personal trainer at that time. I wanted to get my driving license. I wanted to move out of my house. There was so much that I wanted to do at that time. I just had to throw myself into it and become selfish and let everything that I wanted to do consume me. And when you do that, you get a lot of hate projected at you. A lot of, oh, so you think you're better than us? Or, oh, you think you're this, or you think you're that, or da 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 da. Even now with the podcast, people probably have those thoughts. They may not say it, but I guarantee you they have them. Like, it's always gonna come. But the thing is, I can look back now and hand on my heart say, no matter how much somebody hates me for how selfish I was in those times, I didn't cause anybody any harm, and it's now paying benefit to me years down the line. So I really don't care. And that's the kind of biggest thing with dealing with the haters, at least for me, is running it through a kind of logic system and then asking yourself one simple question. Does it matter to you? Do you care? Because realistically, not much matters. Good or bad. Like, if you win the lottery, great. People are gonna love being your friend. But now if you've got to pay out a bunch of money, there's not gonna be anybody to be seen. Like, life changes very quickly. And that's the thing with haters. They're very weak people. So as soon as things get a little bit testing, as soon as things get a little bit uncomfortable, they're going to jump ship. Whether that be you confronting them, or you proving them wrong, or whatever other means of confrontation. As soon as you confront a hater, the game changes. Because they're not prepared for that. Often a lot of the people that are projecting hate, they ain't even projecting it at you. Well, they are projecting it at you, but they're not. It's not personal in that sense. Like a lot of these people that project hate, they project from a place of hating themselves and their own ideas of the world or how things should be or how they should be and da 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 da. It's very rarely a reflection of yourself. So if somebody is spewing hate at you, first kind of ask yourself why. And the answer probably isn't going to be because you're a bad person. Second, ask them if they're alright. Like, I know it sounds counterproductive and it's probably going to be a hard thing to do. But if you ask a bully if they are okay, you'll probably break the bully before they break you. Because the reason they're lashing out is because they're not okay. And unfortunately, that plays on into adulthood more than most people would like to admit. You think bullies stay on the playground. They don't. Bullies enter the workplace. They enter the adult life. Bullies are all over the world in many different shapes and forms. But learning to deal with them, that kind of applies all throughout. Like with anything in life, if you have the tools for it, you can do the job. So now if you have the tools for dealing with haters, if you have the kind of rationale and you take the time to see if there is any validity or justification to what people are saying, because again, it's not to dismiss everything that a hater says. Sometimes they're right. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So sometimes you need to listen and you need to ask yourself, is it a valid opinion? Because sometimes a hater will tell you something that a friend won't. And that thing could actually progress you. Not all criticism is going to be bad criticism. Not all hate is going to be bad hate. So listen to it. Like, fine tune it. But again, it's about having that skin thick enough to understand what doesn't and doesn't have a bearing on you. So for example, if somebody commented on one of my videos, I'm a terrible dad. If that comment come to me from somebody that was close to me in my life, that I valued their opinion, that would be a very hurtful comment. But if that comes to me from a stranger online, I don't give two flying hoots. Because you don't know me, you've never seen me as a dad. You've never seen me in that environment, you have no understanding of that. So, is your opinion valid at all? No. It's fairly simple. So when you're dealing with haters, try to just run a kind of logic scenario. Kind of ask yourself a few questions. Don't just take what they say for value. Uh, Again, sometimes it may have value. Sometimes a hater may be right. That's cool. Take it on board. Do the work on yourself. I know there's times where people have been able to spit hate on me or spew hate at me or whatever. And they have been right. And I've had to look back and said, okay, cool. I weren't a very nice human being at that time. Or I have to justify it because I was X, Y, or Z at that time. But it doesn't mean that I'm a perfect human. So I need to listen to these people. Whether it's good or bad, you need to listen to it sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong, there is, especially if you're talking about the internet, there's going to be so much out there that you need to ignore. That you don't even know if it's an actual person or not, or if it's a bot or an app or a program or an algorithm or whatever else. But again, that's part of your own kind of backstopping procedures, or should be. Where it's, I don't even know if backstopping is the right word there, but where you should kind of be checking in and asking yourself these questions. If somebody says to you you're ugly, ask yourself what you think about yourself. Ask yourself if you're ugly, if you put effort into your appearance, if da 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 da. Whatever it is, kind of don't just take the comment if somebody says you're overweight. Okay, cool. By what standard? Is it something that bothers you? Is there health implications for you? Like, don't just take the comment. Follow the steps back. If somebody says you're broke, da 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 da, follow the steps back. Ask yourself why. What made them think this? Is there truth to this? Like, don't just see the hatred and run away. Because confronting that hatred is an opportunity for you to progress. It's an opportunity for you to get better in life. Not just in the moment, but in the long term too. Like I say, like, I've been kind of incarnations of John, I guess, that ain't my ideal version of myself. Even now, like, I quite like who I am, don't get me wrong. But there are criticisms that I could make on myself, which means there are criticisms that other people could make on me that would be perfectly valid. So that means I've got some work to do on myself. So not to say I'm a bad person, but it's to say there's still some work to be done. I'm willing to do that work. So does the hate really kind of have to be anything of a negative bearing in that sense? No. If anything, it's the squeaky tire that gets the wheel. Thank you, you've told me there's a part of my personality or a part of my person that I need to work on. So thank you, I'm going to go work on that. But as far as the hatred goes, keep it to yourself. I don't need it. Like, And again, kind of relates into the 5 to 10 rule here, where it's the more you do that kind of behavior, the more you kind of take those actions and kind of redirecting somebody else's hate and kind of going, okay, cool. Well, why do you think that? Are you actually thinking that of me, or is that something that you've redirected from yourself? The more you do that process, the better you get at it. The more it becomes like muscle memory, where it's literally just like, oh, cool, somebody's thrown a negative thought. I know how to back that out and da 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 da. And eventually you don't get hit with the negativity. You redirect it. You send it straight back to them or you diffuse it instantly. But you've changed how you deal with things because that's all you can do. You can never change somebody else's actions. So work on what you can do. Work on how you deal with their actions. That you can work on. But what they do in their life, you'll never be able to kind of enforce that. Same as they can't enforce, oh, you're a good person. Oh, you're a bad person. Oh, I want you to do this. Oh, I don't want you to do that. Blah, 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 blah. So try not to stress about it too much. Like, look, everybody's going through life trying to figure this nonsense out. And some people have it a little bit more figured out than others. But I don't think anybody has it 100% figured out. I think we all kind of have a few stray puzzle pieces here and there throughout our lives. So we all kind of discover different parts of life and figure different things out. And sometimes you figure things out with the same answer. Like, for lack of a better way of thinking of like a profound kind of example, 2 plus 2 equals 4, 3 plus 1 equals 4. The same result, different ways of getting there. The same can be said for life. You can have different ways of getting to a happy life. You can have different ways of getting to a bad life. But the way in which you get there is for you to determine. If you choose to be kind of in tune with yourself and always work on it and everything else, kind of goes without saying that you're probably going to get there quicker than somebody that hasn't put in that work or hasn't put in that time. So take the time to put in that work. Take the time to look at hateful comments and ask yourself, is there any validity to them? Or is it something that's just completely dismissible? Like, if you do that and if you take that time, there'll be value that you can gain from that. And as well, you'll learn that the hateful comments or the negative comments or whatever else, they don't mean jack in the grand scheme of things. It really gets into that old sticks and stones metaphor, which a lot of people have forgotten these days. But it's still very true. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, they shouldn't anyway. Not physically. They might hurt your emotions a little bit or whatever else, but hey, get mentally stronger. Build yourself up. Like, there's the whole kind of thing with, like, especially being a little bit reckless in life. Like, if you're climbing trees or if you're doing this or doing that or you're being a little bit wacky and you hurt yourself, the body tends to heal for free. I mean, it depends on what extent you kind of injure it to, I guess. But minor injuries, little kind of mistakes and everything else, the body heals for free. So you kind of got a little bit of leeway in that way to make mistakes and life will get you. Life will catch you. Same with kind of mentally. Mentally, you can make a few slip-ups and da-da-da-da. And it can take a few nicks, bumps and grazes, and it will heal for free just fine. It's the big catastrophic events that kind of make us be like, ooh, we need some help here. We need to outsource. And sometimes that is the answer. Sometimes you need to outsource. Sometimes you need to outsource it to a friend, a therapist, a doctor, or whatever else. But for me anyway, there's a long road of things you can do before you get to there. And hopefully on this episode I've covered a few of them. I'm not gonna lie, I did not long wake up before doing this episode, so I may have forgotten a few, but as always, we get the work done. Hopefully this does help people dealing with hate, and hopefully you understand it is nothing personal. A lot of bullying and a lot of hatred in the world is misdirection or outward projection from kind of people not dealing with things themselves. So hopefully if we can start dealing with things ourselves, if we can look at ourselves in an honest light and be truthful about the good, the bad and the ugly, we can build a far better us, a far better future, and a far better world for everybody. So let's start taking that hard look at ourselves, do the hard work on ourselves, and build a better world for everyone. because we can do it. We just need to put in the work. Now, I'm not afraid to put in the work. Are you? And on that note, I want to end the episode. The seed for this episode is going to be try find the positive in the hate. Try find why that hate fuels you, or why that person hates you, or whatever the motivation behind it. Find that deeper level to that hate. Find the reason for it, because there will be a reason. Whether it be self-hatred or somebody else's hatred, or for hatred in any sense, it's not going to be without its reasons. So look for them. Don't just look for the hate. Look for the reasons behind the hate. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.